let's do another Meanwhile on Snapchat. And this one is a very special Meanwhile on Snapchat. Not just for me, but for you as well, so pay attention. What if I told you that the world was on the brink of discovering a brand new movie genre? And what if I told you me and you were already there? What if I told you that this moment was the moment you got to experience your first loop in an infinite circle? Well, you'd probably get very confused if I told you that, so I won't. Instead, let's just start on day one. Once there was an adventurer. He wasn't the kind of man who sought fortune or fame. He simply followed his calling. One day, he was approached by a mysterious benefactor. The benefactor had but one recognizable feature, the ring on his finger. A strange, intricate design, ancient. All he revealed was the task: go to the temple, retrieve the artifact. The adventurer did not ask why. He didn't need to know. Exploring the unknown, stepping into danger, uncovering mysteries, that's the point of an adventure. And so, with a small nod, he set off on an adventure. When the adventurer arrived at the temple, he wasn't expecting what he found. Puzzles everywhere. Complicated, overly designed, time-consuming puzzles. And he hated puzzles. But this was not the time to back down. His nature was aroused. He was rising. He did something unusual. He rewound the story. Not literally, of course. He imagined what might happen if he hadn't come alone. In his mind, he rewrote the tale, bringing along a puzzle master, someone whose mind could untangle even the trickiest of riddles. Someone like Ramsey. With the puzzle master by his side, they worked through the temple's defenses. Slowly and surely, they cracked each puzzle, clearing the way to the inner sanctum. It was exhausting. Together, they reached the heart of that temple. But here's the thing about adventurers. They're always thinking about what's next, and our brave adventurer faced a tough decision. The puzzle master had served his purpose. The rest of the journey was his to walk alone. With a nod of thanks, he left the puzzle master behind and pressed forward alone. The artifact sat in the center of the temple, glowing faintly, almost as if it were alive. The air was heavy, charged with an electricity he couldn't quite describe, and this was it. The moment he'd come for. The adventurer stepped closer. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for it, juddered, and just as his fingers brushed the surface, everything shifted. A flash of light, a deafening roar, probably. Our poor adventurer was knocked out cold, stars in his eyes and silence in his mind. When he opened his eyes, finally, he wasn't in the temple. He was outside, standing at the very gates where his journey had begun. Time itself had rewound. The adventurer stood there stunned. He didn't know the answer, and for the first time, that feeling scared him. But one thing was clear. His journey was not over. Not yet. The story of the temple is now concluded. That was a terrible cliffhanger. Back up a second. Let me go back one hot second and explain how time travel works, and then we'll finish this story and then get into the real what are mystic movie things. The adventurer, after being flung back in time, began to piece together the truth. He is the benefactor. The Atlantis ring on the benefactor's hand was or will be his, yet his current self, this version of himself, had no knowledge of how he came to possess it. The ring's presence in this timeline is dependent on his own past self not taking the artifact, but his future self having acquired the artifact. The adventurer reflects on his paradox. If he takes the artifact, he is flung back in time, losing it entirely. However, if the benefactor, his future self, somehow already possesses it, he must have taken it or will take it at some point in the circle. This forces a new revelation. The artifact itself is not or may not be the key. The journey and the choice are what set the events in motion. The artifact serves only as a catalyst, a spark, needed to initially overforce him towards a deeper understanding of the layers and time and his role within them. With this revelation, the adventurer faces yet another decision. He can break the loop, trying to refuse to send himself back in time. However, this would erase the benefactor's timeline for his forward path, which should be entangled and therefore essential for the story to begin. Or he could do what he always does. He could complete the loop, set events in motion as they always have or will unfold. This will then ensure that this upcoming version of himself chooses to leave the artifact behind. It's about either choosing not to stay or choosing to leave. The adventurer concludes that the benefactor's timeline exists because the artifact was never taken. By leaving it in the temple, he ensures that his past self will return to find it, setting the loop into motion. The true purpose of the artifact was never to be claimed, but rather to teach the adventurer, and by extension, the benefactor of the past timeline. Essentially, using infinite time to explain how to navigate the cycle of time without disruption. The ring on the benefactor's hand surely is not the same artifact. It is merely a symbol of the knowledge he has gained through the many loops. In this timeline, the artifact remains untouched, perpetually waiting for the next version of himself to find it. Okay, right, there. Time travel, done. You say I never actually say things, there we go, time travel. Now let's get on to the important things. What are mystic movies? Tomorrow, obviously. Yes. Day 2 wasn't a continuation of the temple story. Instead, it was a pretty detailed and thorough explanation of how time travel works. And that doesn't really help us in terms of finding out what mystic movies are. So now I feel like instead of jumping straight into the question of mystic movies, we probably do need to just answer the elephant in the room question. What exactly am I? Before you ask, what is a mystic movie? And before you even begin to ask, shouldn't it be called a Mystic and Prophets movie? I think you are wanting to know what gives me the credentials to explain to you what these type of movies are. You're thinking, am I some sort of prophet? And no, you've gotten that wrong. A mystic and a prophet are two completely different things. I am a mystic. A mystic is comfortable in the dark and around evil forces. Not necessarily evil themselves, but they do not shine a light. Therefore, they are not good to follow. You'll get dashed on the rocks. A prophet, on the other hand, is a lighthouse. They are good to follow. Unless they're a dark or evil prophet, then they probably aren't good to follow. You've watched enough superhero movies to know the difference between good and evil, but a mystic movie clearly involves a mystic. And here's where we get onto the tricky question. Yes, I haven't met a prophet yet, and presumably a mystic movie probably involves a prophet and a mystic working together. And so if I'm making a movie in the future, we'll get onto that on day 5, then probably I do need to meet a prophet at some point, but that's future me's problem. It's not me and you now's problem. Now's problem is, what gives me the credentials? I'm a mystic. And tomorrow's question is, what exactly is a mystic movie? What are mystic movies? Mystic movies are designed to interact differently with the audience. They are designed with layers in mind. They are designed to evolve as you evolve. And they're designed to be rewatched. But mystic movies are still just movies. They are created by directors and writers and actors and a bunch of creative professionals that bring together a creative project. Not all of them are going to be mystics. In fact, most of them won't be. Mystic movies are circular in nature, unlike most movies which are linear in nature. In a mystic movie, the end is not necessarily the end. The end is simply a way for you to reframe the beginning. And when you start the circle again, you have new understanding, which unlocks a deeper question or quest that you can take in the mystic journey inside the circular mystic movie. That's in essence how they work. Let's go back to our temple movie for a second, our ham-fisted example of how a circular movie may work. In essence, it's about an adventurer going on adventure and finding an artifact, but actually it's about the circular nature of time. The adventurer is the benefactor. You don't know that at the beginning, and it's only after you complete the circle you can rewatch it with that new understanding, and it unlocks a new question inside your mind. Get it? Ham-fisted. Now that we understand what mystic movies are, we need to put this in context with the current world. Superhero movies are dying. And we can wrap up this particular Meanwhile on Snapchat with that dour note tomorrow. See you then. Superhero movies are dying. And that's no bad thing either. For the last 20 years or so, they have been the dominant storytelling vehicle for movies. And they have worked because they have given us something to believe in. They've given us hope in a time of darkness. And they've given ordinary people like you a glimpse at having extraordinary powers. And for the longest time now, that is exactly what we've needed. But as an audience, we have moved on. We are craving something deeper. And that's where mystic movies come in hot. No longer is it about defeating the monster and saving the day. Now it's about finding out that the monster was a part of you all along, and how you can start a new day with that new knowledge, which is exciting. My movie that I'm going to be making is a mystic movie. You could have guessed me being a mystic and telling you about mystic movies, but one of the things that we do need to keep mentioning and banging on to you audience members is that it's just a movie still. There are going to be incredible creatives involved, those that have been shaping movies for the last decades, but it is still a movie. One of the things that we are planning is a retreat. This isn't just something for the cast and the crew to get to know each other. This is where we will be shaping the actual movie itself. And something you as an audience member will notice is you are going to be jealous and wish you were there. Things that are coming out from the retreat are little tidbits of the information, and possibly things that we are leaking on purpose to get you excited, because it is a movie. We're going to be doing those kinds of shenanigans to try and get you to actually watch the movie as well. But some of the things are just going to be natural things that leak out from a retreat. And you're going to be seeing a lot of Oscar Isaac. His role in the movie is pivotal, vital even. But it's going to take a while for audience members to realize what his part in the movie actually is and how it unfolds. And that's the whole beauty of mystic movies. They have time to evolve in your mind, and you can revisit them over time and then realize what you didn't initially. I'm so excited for this to finally get kicked off, and now you are ready for the world to join us. And here we are again, back at the beginning. So let me ask you this. What if you told me that you do get mystic movies? What if you told me that you feel a pull to something greater than yourself? What if you told me that you get it? Because that feeling of getting it just before the world gets it is quite a fun one. And if you do, have fun while the world is uncovering mystic movies. This is now an end screen. What that means is you finished this particular video, but there's more that you can do. Why don't you hit subscribe down below, and then once you've done that, why don't you continue your journey with the linked video up above.